Please have a seat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, thank you so much again for being here. This is our first panel discussion, and I wanted simply to give you an idea about how it works. I'll suggest a couple of thoughts, a couple of topics that relate to the topic of mobility, and then have our experts talk a little bit about it. I want this to be as interactive as possible, so please do share with us your thoughts, your comments. Feel free to raise your hand, and I'm happy to give you the mic, because again, we are here to help you understand the intricacies of this topic as it relates again to investment and business opportunities. Just a couple of thoughts as introductory remarks, and if you could please post my slide. I have a quick slide that I want you to see. I think we can say that we are at an inflection point when it comes to transportation and when it comes to mobility. If you think perhaps maybe 100 years ago, when Henry Ford was thinking about how to come up with a new transportation system for the population of the US at that time, what was his idea? What was he thinking about? And what was he looking at? He was looking obviously at horses. He was looking at carts. He was looking at people going slowly. And then he came up with this idea of building a car. And from that moment, basically, humanity entered a new race that we call the race of mobility. I think it's fair to say that we are at this moment now as we talk about artificial intelligence, autonomous driving, and smart driving. In the near future, in 10 years from now, maybe our perception of transportation mobility will change. Maybe our vision of transportation and mobility will change. This slide that I am sharing with you comes from a very good study conducted by PwC, and it's a new study in 2018. They are thinking about what will be the factors that will impact the development of smart transportation and smart mobility. And you have to think about two elements. First of all, the vehicle control. Who's going to be controlling the vehicle? Is it the person, or is it an assistant, or it's completely autonomous? So that's one question you have to think about. And then the other question is, who's going to be in the car? Is it personal, or is it shared, or is it in between? So these are the two questions that you need to address. Once you ask these two questions, then you come up with all these different technologies, from an incremental change to a world of sharing to driverless revolution to an accessible new form of mobility. I think this is the framework, if you will, of conversation. For instance, on the vehicle control, one of the most important things we address is the social norm. Would I accept actually to have my kids being driven by a robot or being driven by an autonomous? Is this something you as an individual you can do? So these are some of the questions that we will address. But I think the most important question that we are going to start with is, of course, the environment in which you operate, which is mainly decided by government regulation and government legislation. We're happy to be in the UAE because we have a very technology-forward government. Anything you want to do, you will find the help in terms of regulation and legislation. But again, there are still certain questions that we need to ask. So I'm going to start with His Excellency Zulfiqar to tell me about how you perceive the role of government in preparing or impeding the development of mobility and smart transportation.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I think the most important role, in fact, is of the government here. I originally come from India, and successive governments have kind of created a framework where the transportation network was to be built in keeping in mind the future and the expansion and the growing population of the country. Now, coming back to the global perspective, I feel that the most important role of the government, A, is to create a master plan. B is the funding, because most important here, because it's very capital intensive projects, when you talk about creating a multimodal transportation system or road networks, it requires a lot of investments and funding. That's where I think the seriousness of the government comes into the play. Yeah.
Very good. Let me move actually to my other next. So what do you think the government should do or ought to do in order to spur innovation again in this space?
Well, first of all, it's such a pleasure to be here with you guys today. And I have the pleasure of working at Dubai Carbon, and we work on the carbon intensity, intense environment that we've developed in Dubai and how to reduce that in terms of behavioral change. And that's the aspect that I want to talk about. The government in the UAE and in Dubai are very driving capital investment in infrastructure projects like you mentioned. But what we're also trying to do is create awareness and create behavioral change. It's not as simple as if you build it, they will come. We're also trying to create an environment where people are aware of modern transport technologies and will easily take them on board once they're ready to go. So on one hand, yes, we're looking at a 50-year plan and a 71-year plan, but at the same time, we're readying future generations and readying thought leaders of today to get ready to adapt to this new modes of transport. If you look at the vehicle penetration rates in Dubai, they're some of the highest in the world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we still have a very short commute compared to other larger countries in terms of land mass. So, like my colleague mentioned about the Hyperloop, trying to do a beta test within Abu Dhabi and Dubai. This is happening because it's not just a matter of the fact that the capital investment or the money is there. It's also a matter of the fact that there's a willingness to change conventional behavior. And I think that's where the government really comes into play.
Very good. I'm glad that you addressed this issue of social norms and cultural elements, the mindset. Again, in my imagery that I presented earlier, look back at when Henry Ford was starting a revolution in creating a car or making a car, how he would convince the people who actually lived with horses and carts to basically switch. So basically that's where we are, this inflection point again that I was talking about. So it's not only a matter of laws and regulation, it's a matter actually of working generations to adopt this new way of transportations. Ala, what's your take on the role of government in terms of what are some of the technical things that you need to have in order to be able to have a smart solution?
Well, if we speak about smartness, actually, smart mobility, actually, then this is very associated with things like information and the communication, telecommunication infrastructure, operational technology infrastructure, Internet of Things infrastructure, and so on. In fact, most of the transportation agencies has already laid out these infrastructures across the field. However, the most important thing actually is the need to re-architect these things again and build what is called digital business platform. This digital business platform presents an umbrella term under which there are 5 main technology capabilities, which are the information system platform and the ecosystem platform and the Internet of Things platform and the data and analytics platform and the customer experience platform. And having integrated these things and combined them under this umbrella term called the digital business platform, will decrease or mitigate the security risk, make the implementation more easy. And in fact, we have a complete session tomorrow, inshallah, about how to establish a roadmap to implement your digital business transportation digital business technology platform, and what are the main considerations to do that, and how to include the big data analytics on
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a technical element that is very important to pay attention to in terms of preparing, again, the different digital platforms that will manage this transition. Khalid, you come from the Department of Energy, so there is a lot of discussion, obviously, in that department about the new trends in terms of what smart transportation will bring to a country in terms of saving costs and cleaning the environment. So from that perspective, what would be the role of the government to spur that?
Well, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. I'm coming with around 25 years of experience in the telecom and also energy sector, but mainly in the technical side, IT and information security. So I would like really to emphasize more into that area. The government here, in early days, they pushed all the sectors to be number one in different things. And imagine the government pushing the telecom sector to be number one in the world for having fiber optic connectivity to home. At that age, at that time, long time ago, it was maybe somehow meaningless. Today, building that infrastructure will enable you to all these nice technologies. And also, really, I would like to say the government was pushing all the new initiatives. I cannot ignore having a minister within our cabinet to be a minister of AI. That's a very strong message for everybody living in this country, all to the world, that we are really a digital government. We are really pushing the latest technology. We are really also welcoming all the R&D and latest technology to come to our world and to our country. I would like really to say that most of these nice buzzwords in the world, blockchain or AI and things like this, it cannot be successful without funding, without big support coming from the government. Today in the real estate and things like this, really people can say it is not, it's just a buzzword, big data or blockchain. But when they see the government is pushing these projects, pushing the companies, the infrastructure, the country, the whole government to go that way, it means there is a big support from the government to sponsor, to really also bring all these, I will say, vendors, partners, implementers, system integrators to come to this and help the government entity and to help the private sector to implement these latest technology. Also, I would like to emphasize that last month was a month of innovation. And this is also another strong message from the government to say, guys, we are here to bring the latest technology to the population of UAE, even to the, I will say, to the region. I always tell my colleagues, in any keynote speak, I always say, Sheikh Mohammed always do this. And you can have different, meaning of these things. I will always say that he keeps saying and talking in his books and talking in his keynotes about never stop learning. And this is what he's pushing all the government entities, that all the staff, all the employees has to continue learning in their fields. And also he's always pushing us, never stop improving. Today has to be better than yesterday, and tomorrow has to be much better than today. And the third one, always he's keep talking about never stop innovating. And as I said, we have a full month of innovation. They brought all the brains, they brought all the, I will say, companies and vendors to talk about and make it a really lifestyle of our young generation and of our people living in UAE. So government is playing a major role to enable, I will say, enable the innovation, enable the latest technologies, enable this buzzword in the world to be a reality.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm actually happy that you mentioned His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, the vision that he has for this country and for this Emirates, and what you see happening actually in Dubai or in the UAE in the last maybe 10 years is a result, is an outcome of that vision. I used to teach a class on foreign direct investment, and in foreign direct investment, FDI, we classify countries and we rank them based on how clean and how welcoming and how attractive to foreign direct investment are. And I'm glad to say that Dubai is actually UAE is one of the highest top ranking country in terms of attracting foreign direct investment in a variety of fields in technology, definitely. So the role of the government is very important, and without a government help and support, you cannot go that far. And we're glad, again, to be in this country because we have a very aggressive government in terms of innovation and smart transportation. I want to move to a technical term a little bit, which is the EV, the electrical vehicle. I think we have some experience in this country with respect to that. When you go to some stations, you see that there are spaces or parking spaces for people who use EVs. So that's, again, something that is very, very positive in terms of changing people's behavior. I want to go back to you, actually. What's your experience in terms of creating an infrastructure for this, for deploying this type of technology? What's your thought?
So there's a couple barriers of entry whenever you introduce a new technology to an environment like Dubai or any other city. The positives that we have is that obviously the legislation environment here is super forward thinking, and like my colleague mentioned, it's all about innovation and adapting new technology rapidly. Despite that, there's obviously a large population here that's not completely interacting with the government, so we need to educate them too. Now, our experience in the past, in the past 5 years, there's been 200 new chargers just from DEWA alone, and 100 from other private companies, the likes of Tesla and NG as well, that are working towards this. Now, there's been a lot of barriers of entry in the sense of the physical installations, the barriers of entry in how to use these chargers. And it might seem simple once you get it, but it's crazy how difficult it seems when you're first interacting with this technology. I remember that reading a report earlier about Dubai, and now it has the 5th highest charger density in the world in less than 5 years. So it's been an incredible increase, but through that journey, what we've faced is that the issue of, okay, where are we going to place these chargers? How are we going to tell people, how are they going to use these chargers? How much is it going to cost? And right now, it doesn't cost anything to charge your car. Until the end of this year, charging for electric vehicles in the city of Dubai is completely free. And that's solely for the purpose to incubate people into this technology so they can use electric cars and know this is how we're going to use them, and these are the fringe benefits of using a modern mode of transportation. But what we're also doing is that EVs also bring along many other questions. So, I mean, I've been at conferences where people have come up and asked us, can I take my electric vehicle to a car wash because it has a battery in it? Well, you can, and we're here to tell you that. So we're also trying to close this gap. It's very natural for there to be a taboo around a new technology, and as the government, we're trying to close that as well. So we let people know that these are the type of electric vehicles we have. This is a hybrid, this is a complete EV, this is a plug-in, this is a regenerative engine, and what's very interesting is we have now over 4,400 green vehicles in Dubai, so that includes hybrids and electric vehicles. Within that realm, a large chunk of that number comes from public transport. So Dubai Taxi, Careem, Uber. Now, a lot of the men or the women that are using these cars are not engineers. They're not people that have developed these cars or even involved with the transition into modern transport. But we've still put into place through ESEARA and other programs an education legislative environment where we've enabled them to use the chargers. We've enabled them to understand how electric vehicles work. And what this does, it creates this great environment of optimism for us in the realm of government, is that, okay, if we can get the public transport sector, which is always the most robust to move to transition, then the private sector should be able to come on board, because all we have to do is paint the picture of fiscal and economic feasibility.
Very good. Thanks for bringing up the issue and the question of private sector, because that's also another aspect that needs to be debated. I'm going to go back to you, my friend. Your office almost acts as a VC, as a venture capitalist, because you're looking for opportunities, you're looking for companies, you're looking for startups, you're looking for technologies basically in this space and other spaces as well. So what do you look for when you're thinking about investment? What are the common themes that you see in a company or in a startup, whether it's in Dubai, in the UAE, or outside of the country? to put your money on that, to bet your money on that technology? What are some of the 1 or 2, 3 common factors you think about?
Sure. We predominantly want to look at something which doesn't not just help the present, but something which certainly add value to the future of the world. Coming back to the electric cars that you just mentioned, we very closely looked at one of the electric car technology, and we did not go ahead with the investment because we feel the lithium is itself a resource which is either under control of a predatory mindset-driven country. I don't want to name any country, but there's a major crisis because that country in particular controls 80% of the lithium in the world. And you don't want to have a situation where you're at the mercy of a certain economy, a certain country again. So in order to avoid that situation, there I have a scientists who have developed a technology which is far better than lithium. It works on static. For example, if you're in a dry room and if you touch something, you get a static. That's a technology which is being at a very advanced stage that we are talking about. And we will probably be investing. Just to give you a hint,
Yes, yes.
as to we are not just excited about this whole Tesla regime. It's for okay, masses are very happy to go in those opening cars and Teslas, but we are looking something beyond. In last 1 year, I traveled 22 times to Silicon Valley. That tells you about my initiative in terms of looking at not just the best, but the next thing. Most important for us consideration is it doesn't matter how big or small the company is. It has to have a scalability and it has to have that human element to it. So that's the core at our investment.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's good to know that as an investor, you're always looking for certain sustainability in the future, that if you have access to a technology, you would want it to stay with that technology, or you would want at least think that you are going to be with this technology for some time. Ala, I want to go back to you with respect to the question of technical requirements that are needed for the readiness of the infrastructure, because again, the government builds roads, the government does a lot of things and connects things. What would be 1 or 2 things that you believe are important to do in order to help EV or other type of vehicles?
Actually, the Gartner is a research and advisory firm. Actually published that most of the digital business that will take place, digital business transformations that will take place in the near future will suffer from lack of security. Therefore, re-architecting the technical infrastructure is very important, actually, to give an opportunity to better understand the individual components of this infrastructure. Therefore, re-architecting the digital business is very important. Re-architecting the infrastructure is very important to mitigate the risk from the digital business platform. Imagine that, for example, if you connect your ecosystem platform, you will connect it to all the market players. Also, when you connect the Internet of Things platform, you connect it to things. And these things can be owned by the enterprise itself, it can be owned by the customers, or it can be owned by the partners. Therefore, the traditional border for security between the inner and the outer and the demilitarized zone, and such a concept should be actually evolved to enable the government, the transportation agencies to mitigate the risk from digital business arising from digital business transformations. And re-architecting, better understanding is very important, actually, for the infrastructure part of technology.
Very good. Thank you. Khaled, I want to go back to you with respect to some of the challenges that you faced in your department with respect to deploying any new technology, whether it's EV or any other thing. What are some of the main challenges or obstacles that you can think of?
Well, nowadays, there are many challenges. When it comes to resources, it's a big challenge. and this is a message to all of the audience here as a parents, before even being a professional people in the market. You have to start guiding your teenage girls and boys to the latest technology and what the needs of the market when it comes to what they should study. You can have a brilliant kid and maybe majoring in electrical engineering or economy, and then sit at home for the next 3-4 years looking for a job. And this is what's happening nowadays. Maybe there are some majors in the universities where are really not needed at this stage of the digital era we are living with. And there are a lot of new opportunities and a lot of new, I will say, jobs is being created because of this revolution and because of this data era we are living on. So really, they need your guidance, they need your help. So resources, we are facing a big problem when it comes to the resources to maintain all these nice buzzwords or nice technologies we are talking about. People in the IT or information technology field, they're talking about big data, they're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, they're talking about cloud. And there are a lot of jobs being created there, and they need a lot of resources. And really, lack of resources is one of the most important factors to enable these technologies to connect the whole world so we can enjoy EV and we can enjoy all what we are talking about and to really change our lifestyle and to help us live in an easier and different new lifestyle. Second thing I will say, information security is very, very key factor. And information security, I will say one statement here, which is you need to be alerted, awake all the time to secure your environment, to secure your data. And for the hacker or the cyber hacker, he has to be, right only once. To attack you and try to really somehow disturb your operation by stealing account information, authentication information. They are really targeting certain data and then start abusing you and try to really disturb your operation. So information security talent and resources are also very, very much limited. Also, when it comes to the people, awareness. Awareness is one of the things we've been talking about. It's very, very important to start. We are living again, as I said, with all these new kids in the block. They really don't care much about security. They don't care much about privacy. And things with the technology we're talking about, with the EV or with blockchain and with things like this, all the data is being exposed. Your health information, your location-based, and your, traveling and all these things being exposed. So self-awareness and what you need to be exposed at what time, and also data management is very important. So in the Department of Energy, for example, and in the government of UAE, we are really looking at many very key areas. One of them is related to the data management. When the data, where is the information security of the data when it is in the what's in the transit or whenever it's moving. So the ownership of the data, who has to access it, and when it's to be accessed. Actually, there is something in the information security, we call it the rules, or we call it, the values of information security. We call it CIA, stand for, that the information has to be correct, right, and available for the customer at the right time. So it cannot be, you cannot give them, availability of the data should be available all the time. The integrity of the data it should be, accurate whenever it's been asked for or whenever it's been. So the CIA is the values of the information security. It's very, very important. So what I'm trying to say here, resources is very, very important. Number two, regulation. In the government of UAE, we are pushing data management, information security from regulation point of view. We have something called NISA, TRA, and ISO. Many of the federal entities now implementing ISO 27000, one as an information security ISO. It is not just a show off. It's very important to build the right, model, to build culture within your organization, a very secured culture, and to have the process clearly there to make sure that you are securing your data. And nowadays, it's not only your data, as the doctor, he said, it is everybody's data, the data coming from the private sector, data from your customer, and data also coming from the social media. So that's very important to put standard for it. So again, once again, regulation is very, very important, and adapting what we call it framework, adapting ISO certification and things is very important. It's not a show off anymore. Resources, we have to have proper training, proper recruitment, proper also, self-initiative, self-learning for our guys to learn all these new technologies. Nowadays, every 6 months, things are changing. Technologies are changing, and a new buzz is being introduced in the world. So what I'm trying to say, UAE is doing a great job, but our government is always ambitious to say we want to be number one. Maybe today we will be talking about EV, and we are not far away behind Netherlands or Singapore or US, but we are number 8 almost when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to regulation, when it comes to, but also we need public understanding, customer acceptance and customer awareness, and we need also to bring these R&Ds houses and hubs to be also built within our country.
Very good. Thank you, Khaled, for this discussion. Actually, I liked the 2 points, which is the labor market or the talent management pipeline and the safety and security of information. These are the 2 big challenges that you will have to face at any disruption. Whenever the market is being disrupted, meaning whenever the market is being changed, you have to address these 2 elements, which is the safety and security and the labor market, because basically you are operating with rules that do not apply anymore, the previous rules of the previous regime, and then you have a new ideas that you need to. Go ahead, Ala.
I want also to add something in addition to the safeguarding of the information or the data. We should also take care of the cybersecurity, because it also safeguards the physical assets. Because nowadays, with using the operational technology and the Internet of Things, hackers can attack the physical assets. They can attack the power transformers. They can attack the power generators. They can attack the nuclear reactors. They can attack vehicles, for instance. They can attack oil wells, for instance. Therefore, this is another dimension, new dimension associated with operational technology in the Internet of Things.
Very good. Muzal, you want
Yeah,
to say something?
can I just mention something regarding the future of technology? I mean, and it's a very simple statement. Robots are not going to take our jobs. Like, I just want to put that out there. The future of transport, and I completely agree with the emphasis on security that's been highlighted in the panel. But the future of transport, or the future of any technology, isn't meant to be put in place to take away anything from the economic labor market at the moment. It's not put in place to make our lives harder, or for us to be out of jobs, or for us to find it more difficult to be employed. What it does is it actually aligns with one of the UN SDGs regarding employment, and it creates room for more dignified, more educated opportunities for employment. So whereas you might have, let's say, about 500,000 people in the US that are looking to be truck drivers, you might now have a big percentage of those people that might be designing the framework that will develop autonomous trucks. So which one would you rather be doing as an individual? And that's what we're trying to do with the future of tech. So yes, there's a definite emphasis on the increased cybersecurity, but at the same time, there are positives that we're moving toward a more dignified workforce. And a perfect example of that is the South Asian region. If you look at the countries like Pakistan or Bangladesh or India, where people have access to the internet and they have access to the same amount of resources in terms of information that somebody that would be more economically well off would. And now you are getting business ideas, startup ideas, and future development ideas from people from economic backgrounds and social backgrounds that are identifying problems that we would have never even seen before. So there is an upside to modern tech as well.
Very good. I liked actually your point. Whenever you address the issue of robotics and artificial intelligence, I like experts when they say at this moment. Because yes, at this moment, robots are not going to take over, excuse me. But depending when you're talking about general AI or narrow AI, there is a moment in the future where perhaps we will have to address this question. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'd like to give you a chance to think about any comment or question that you would like to ask the experts. I'm going to run one final topic, and while you're getting ready for the question, and my final topic for the panel is the ethical and moral issue of this technology changes and technology disruption. There's a very known case study that we call in business schools the trolley problem. And the trolley problem is a problem in which you put actually two pictures for a student or for a learner. And in the first picture, you show them a person who has a choice to kill one person or 5 people. In that picture, you will see a train come in. And you tell the person that you are in charge of directing that train. That train is going to go either killing one person or 5 people. What would you choose? So that's one scenario. In the second scenario, it shows a picture of someone who is on the bridge, and you tell the students, you see that there is a train is going to kill either one person or 5 people. And your job is to push someone from the bridge to stop the train, and then you will save either one person or 5 people. And the idea of this moral dilemma is actually to push students to think about what they need to do when they are facing with a very, very complex, difficult situation. MIT just ran another study like a month ago where basically they replaced this moral dilemma of the trolley problem by a machine. So it's not you who's going to be deciding, but actually it's the machine who is going to be deciding. And that's what I want to talk about. So when a machine is deciding whether actually to kill a grandma or to kill a young person because you are basically in front of them, what would the machine do? So these are some of the ethical and moral issues that we talk about when we talk about exponential technology. So let me go back to my panel. So what's your take on the ethical and moral issue with respect to technology?
Well, we have to face the fact that we are living in a very agile environment, and the new generation, they really don't care much about the values. And this is our duty really to make sure that such thing is being built in within our DNA of any organization. I have to, maybe I am old enough to say that the new generation, they are coming with a mindset that everything has to be under their control, and speed is very important, and time of connectivity and changes and things like this. And this is very important, you know, to be always first time to market and to have a very competitive edge in this a very competitive environment we are living on. But that doesn't mean we should not really have the values being part of our DNA. That's why I will say CEOs nowadays, they really, with the help of HR and help of others, they should really have that values being part of the DNA of any organization. In my organization, I always like to do what I call it social engineering, where I go and throw a report in a printing room where it has a lot of, I will say, financial information, just to see what people will do. And sometimes you see a big reaction of the staff. Some of them will say this is a very confidential information, should not be here. We have visitors, we have people who are not supposed to be exposed to such information. Sometimes you need to do what we call it, just throw a USB somewhere on the floor and just put an Excel file where it says payroll and see how people can interact with these things, you know. And really speaking, with the culture and with the generation, the guys are coming from the college nowadays, they are hungry for information. They are hungry to know everything, and they don't care much about values. So
Very good, Khalid. Let me actually add that I totally agree with you that there is like a cultural shift, but I think it's also relative. It depends on how you look at it. Let me give it back to you. So what's your take?
I just want to speak to that because I graduated very recently, and I'm just going to put my hand up for this generation. And I completely do agree that we are super information hungry. We're always on our phones. We have so much data that we don't even know what to do with the information that we have. However, my dad's generation signed up on Facebook and they didn't know what they were signing up for. My generation signed up on Facebook and now we're taking them down, asking where's our data going. So I think it's a bit of a progression as well. We are becoming more aware of the fact that if you're not paying for something, you're not the customer, you're the product. So we're learning. I mean, I understand that we're not there yet, but we're moving forward. And when it comes down to the ethics of technology and what you mentioned about artificial intelligence, there's been 3 Twitter AI bots that have been shut down in less than a month, all 3 of them, because it took them less than 2 weeks to start spewing out racial slurs on Twitter, automated. Nobody fed them anything. They just looked at tweets on Twitter and they were racially charged within 2 weeks. So it also pays testament to the environment. And Twitter is not used by a specific generation because it's used by world leaders all the way down to people talking about irrelevant sports. So it's an entire ecosystem and it shows where the world is in place right now. However, the ethical code for technology is not really centralized across cultures. So let's take a situation like the one you mentioned about payroll. I think that's fairly centralized. Nobody wants that to be leaked across countries or across continents or cultures. However, but you go down to the nitty-gritty of it. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and when I grew up in Saudi Arabia, a lot of the information, personal information, wouldn't be shared. It was just a cultural thing that you're more private about your personal life. You move towards the West, and when you're doing business, it's a little bit more open, and vice versa about so many other things. So the challenge that we face is that this international global society, global citizen passport kind of situation, where you need to now basically come up with a new AI or technology-based legislation that kind of develops a code of ethics for the internet. And that is an incredibly hard task to do because if I start listing the awful things that are on the internet, then we'll be here all day.
Very good. I like actually your example of Facebook. Some people signed up on Facebook knowing nothing about it, and some people signed up knowing a lot about it, and they had to make some choices. I think we are wrapping up this nice conversation. I'm going to take your question or your comment first, but please, again, interact with us if you have any questions or comment to add. We're happy to address that. Introduce yourself. Tell us what company you work for and be as short as possible and as precise as possible. Yes, sir.
My name is Aiken Adamson. I come from a company called Ricardo. I've got a question about the adoption of electric vehicles. And if we start with the premise that EVs are a good thing, we know that Norway is one of the leading countries for the adoption of electric vehicles. And we know that one of the reasons that's been the case is because the government has subsidized the purchase of vehicles and also taxed the non-electric vehicle fleet. Other countries around the world have taken a different tack, and the adoption has been at a more sort of organic rate. So my question is, should government play a role in the adoption of electric vehicles if we think they're a good thing, or should that be left to the marketplace?
Very good. Thank you so much. Nice question. I'm going to actually ask Khalid to address this question quickly, and then Mr. as well.
No, as I said earlier, big time, the government should support pushing and bringing these, I will say, technology to the region. Without the government, really it will be very slow penetration, and this is not what the government wants. The government here is pushing clean energy, they're pushing the nuclear energy, they're also pushing electrical cars, and again, the way they're doing it from different point of views. Again, regulation is one, bringing the private sector help with the manufacturer help with the trying to facilitate also the awareness of the customers. Now, for the customer point of view, they're trying to make their life much easier when owning an electrical car or vehicle by having free registration, insurance for sometimes, recharging, as we said, for the year of 2019, free. They're trying to push even more access points or more charging point, talking to hotels and Ministry of Tourism, pushing the hotels to have parking with charging points. They are pushing the shopping malls. They are pushing even the petrol stations. Government is playing major role in this. Otherwise, believe me, it will be individual initiatives, and it will be just show off between different guys bringing nice cars but to see the government has a very, very nice strategy and a plan to be there. We know that we are ranked number 6 nowadays in the world when it comes to penetration of electrical vehicles in the world, but we are not stopping. We want to go by putting good infrastructure, but also with the help of other things, the whole ecosystem together.
Very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite questions because it always comes up when we're talking about electric vehicles. My CEO is Italian, and he's always telling me, Masad, I don't even know who my government's going to be in 2 weeks. So that's the really great thing about the UAE, that we have the ability to actually plan for the future in terms of 2071, 2050 strategies and 2030 strategies. So we leverage that in our electric vehicle campaigns as well. So the answer to your question would be yes and no, both actually. Because the government needs to be involved in terms of paving the way to give people the infrastructure here, because it's such a regulated environment, and energy is very regulated in the UAE. So they need to provide the infrastructure, they need to provide the legislation for the people to enter the market. But on the other hand of things, the government doesn't manufacture the cars. The government doesn't manufacture the chargers. So there needs to be obviously a lot of private sector entities that add value to this transition. It's very simple, and we keep saying this at Dubai Carbon, is that you're not going to walk into an office anymore and tell them, please save the environment, because they frankly just don't care. But if you tell them you're going to save $200,000 a year, they'll all sign up. So it's as simple as that. We're trying to add economic value to the electric vehicle transition. The government is helping us do that, and that way it's a partnership between the public and private sector.
Very good. And on that, I think we're going to finish this conversation. I liked, again, the 3PP, the partnership between private and public. That's how it works. You need always to be engaged in that. I wanted to thank you so much for being engaged with us. I want to thank my panels, and I will see you in a few minutes. Thank you.